Welcome to this year's State of Right-to-Left Language Support in LibreOffice. And I'm Eyal. I'm a member of the Hebrew and the Arabic user group slash Telegram groups, and LibreOffice RTL as well, and the filer and triager of a lot of right-to-left related bugs in recent years. The last time we gave this talk, or I gave this talk, was 2 years ago in Milan, and before that, in 2018, Lior Kaplan gave the talk. What are we gonna cover today? So this was not gonna show up first, but no animations for us this time. So a reminder about right to left and complex text layout languages. A reminder, which is actually really important, about where we need to support these scripts or written languages. Highlights of the activity in LibreOffice in this domain since 2022, and specifically our new developer hire. A reminder about two major challenges for in the support of right-to-left scripts, and finally a couple of recommendations. And these are important things that I'm not going to talk about because then the talk would not be 30 minutes. So I'm not going to talk about import filter issues, which are very important, and lots of other bugs that we're not going to mention at all. There are interesting bug statistics that maybe after the conference I'll add as bonus slides, but not right now. Not going to talk about the actual code or the development process. And we're not going to see the interesting details about the magical bugs that were fixed and now things look nicer now, and anything else that I can't fit in the time we have. So we'll talk about important things and not so much about the interesting things. So sorry about that. Let's start with our reminder, and especially for whoever in the room is not very familiar with the subject. So languages that are written in right to left, sometimes we call them scripts because the spoken language and what we use to write it is often not the same thing, depending on where you're living and what you speak. So the most common one is the Arabic script, which is used for the Arabic language, also for Farsi or Persian, and other languages in West Asia and in North Africa, and also used for one of the languages, or the main language in one of the languages in Indonesia, the Javanese language. So the Arabic script has the most users. Then there are two rather popular African scripts, Nako and Adlam, and unfortunately these are massively underrepresented in our project and user groups, etc. So this is a real problem that we have. There's also Rohingya, that's more of like a mid to / East Asian script near Bangladesh. That's where people who use it live. There's Hebrew, which is overrepresented, e.g. by myself, and there are more. And this is really not the end of the list, and you can click that link for few more things, and some people in the room might remember ancient runic Hungarian, which is also right to left. So those are the languages, but let's look at the division of those languages. So before we looked at them by number of users, or say native users. Now let's look at languages. So we have left to right and right to left languages. We were talking about these. So that's one distinction, whether the language is written from left to right or from right, obvious, right? From here to here, or from here to here. And so that's one distinction. Another distinction, which is not the same one, regards the simplicity of the layout of the glyphs. So if do I just have one glyph for a given character, or does the glyph change or needs to be adapted according to the context? So whether it's at the beginning of the word, at the end of the word, it's the other glyphs that are next to it, can it connect to them? So this one, it can connect to the one before it, but it can't connect to the one after it. So languages with these sorts of arrangements are called complex text languages, and some of them are left to right, like Devanagari, which is a script used for Sanskrit in the Indian subcontinent, and other languages as well. Actually, this slide is a slight lie, because even the Latin script, if you think of, say, handwritten text, then it becomes a complex text layout. It's not that simple. And sometimes we have like combinations of letters, like F and I, which are rendered as a single, can be rendered as a single glyph, or double S in German. So you could say that everything is kind of complex layout, but mostly or usually not really. So this distinction is a bit questionable. Still, it's important that the kinds of issues we have with the order we write things, and the kinds of issues with the way we connect and render glyphs are typically not the same issues. So a few other statistics. About between 5.5% and 12% people of the people on Earth use right-to-left script. But that depends on how you count. If it's the secondary language, then you have the fact that Islam is a very popular religion, and then traditionally it uses the Arabic script for religious texts, so you have a lot of that. And a lot of people use Arabic as a second language or third language, but the statistic we care about the most here, or the most in contrast with the rest, and I don't have the number here, we have a very low percentage of LibreOffice users who use right-to-left script relative to the number of users overall, and how many people in the world use right-to-left. So this is an ongoing problem. So where do we need to have to support these scripts, these languages? It starts obviously from the document model and document structure, and that means aspects of the ODF specification. Of course, what we usually think about is the rendered document, what we put on screen, or on paper or into the output file. And then there are lots of, let's call them gadgets in the document that aren't just the text itself. So things like comments and footnotes and numbering mechanisms like line numbering and paragraph numbers and all of those things. We need to account for right to left and different aspects of supporting those. Then, of course, there is the user interface. So we also need to be able to have a generally right-to-left user interface. But even in the left-to-right interface, some things may need to account for right-to-left content. So sometimes we need to flip things. Sometimes we need to consider right-to-left specific functionality and represent that in the UI regardless of what the general UI direction is. And sometimes there are features that we find in specific languages which aren't necessarily dependent on them being right to left, but we need them. For example, in Arabic, you can extend the connection between characters using a line rather than spaces. So this is not a right to left thing, but it needs to be represented sometimes, even in the user interface. so far that was in the application or the application modules themselves, but also important is help, documentation, websites that we want in these languages, and also availability of platforms to discuss or ask questions, and also when we train people, whether we train people as users or as trainers of users who help others. And when we train developers, so if someone comes into LibreOffice developer work, will they also learn about right to left, complex text layout, CJK aspects? So in those contexts as well, support is important. So what have we done, or what have other people done mostly since 2022? It's been 2 years. There are a lot of things that that have happened, and there are a few things that it's noteworthy that have not happened. So we've reorganized the hierarchy of the bugs that we use, bug pages online that we use to track technical issues, and we'll go into the details of all of these items. So the foundation has hired a new developer to work on right to left, complex text layout, and East Asian languages. A lot of bugs have been fixed, almost 60, and some of them are quite significant and meaningful, and I'll mention a few. And there's been just like a tiny bit of traction on one of the major challenges that I pointed out in this last talk 2 years ago. But there was no development action on that. The community situation is actually deteriorated. We're in a worse situation than we were 2 years ago, and also the activity in online platforms regarding right to left languages is in a worse situation than in 2022, unfortunately. So let's mention a few details. So I mentioned bugs, but more generally, if you want to track and get an idea of how what our situation is with respect to right to left support, that's not that simple, especially the aspects that are outside of the application. But this subject or things related to RTL support occasionally come up in the Engineering Steering Council, occasionally come up in the design meetings, and there's also a Telegram channel, LibreOffice RTL, where you are more than welcome and to come bring things up or ask or even mention something that you're doing that is related, so other people know about it as well. But the technical issues are on our bug tracker, which I think basically all of you know pretty well. So a change that we've made, until a very short time ago, we had a single big tracker bug called right to left and complex text layout, so RTL, CTL, and I split this one up. So now there's an RTL metabug and a CTL metabug, and they're separate. And also the language-specific issues don't necessarily block any of them. They just block languages, and we're going to see a graphic of this in a while. But the point is that now, if you're filing a bug that has to do with anything in the right to left or CTL space, then take a moment to look at the next slide or memorize some of it. And regardless, you need to pick and choose which aspects of which technical meta issues your issue is related to. It's not just, okay, it's RTL, CTL, it's fine, because now we're better sorted. And if you're not sure, you can always ask, and we'll think about it together. So this is this is proof that it's not easy to draw trees of and DAGs of nodes in LibreOffice Impress, especially with the connectors. But other than that side comment, we have some language-specific bugs. Some of them are about multiple languages, and all of these block language issues. And then there are also large technical issue tracker bugs. So there's the largest ones that are RTL and CTL, and we have smaller ones. If it's a UI issue that's about right to left, then it belongs here, etc. And if it's right to left for things within a text box. And so this is the way our hierarchy looks now. And if it doesn't make sense to you, then that's fine. We have a Telegram channel, and you can come argue with us or with me. So then the next development is the fact that we've hired someone I will soon reintroduce, but for a while we've been asking for more developer time to handle these issues. Typically, there's not enough use of LibreOffice in countries and among people who use right-to-left scripts, and a lot of the or even most of the development happens through like commercial motivation, or people in the ecosystem companies and their clients are not asking for right-to-left things. Then that was a main motivation for asking for TDF resources. And it was decided at some point that the TDF will hire a developer to work on these issues, CJK as well. Hiring process started a year and a half ago. A great developer, Khaled Hosni from Egypt, was initially selected for this position, but there were issues of, I believe, a personal nature, so I don't know the details. So even though he was supposed to start, it didn't really work out. The process was restarted. And now I will ask our new developer to stand up. So Jonathan Clark, give him a hand, because he's definitely earned it already. He is our new developer. I couldn't find his photo on the internet, which you should give him a hand just for that fact. But so he joined the foundation in 2024. Already in May, and a month and a bit after he joined, he already committed a meaningful fix, and he updates the engineering steering council every week on his progress, and there is progress. He's already worked on 34 bugs. I didn't say 34 fixes, but a lot of them are also fixes, and that are related to all three issues. And RTL and CTL are what I care about, so that's good. And most of these are actually fixes. I'm very happy and pleased with the interactions I've had with Jonathan. He's communicative. He's attentive to feedback. When I ask him for things, they often get done, and when they don't, it's for good reason. So Jonathan's great, and I'm really glad we have you. And this is his email, but don't just. You could just write him, but again, if you want to discuss something, go to the Telegram channel first, and bother Jonathan later. By the way, you can interrupt me with questions if you like, but there's also time for them at the end. So here is the part where we were supposed to see some interesting bug fixes, and instead of seeing them, we'll just kind of briefly survey them. Like I said, there are almost 60. These are my, and I selected bugs of two kinds: right to left bugs, which are not CTL specific, and CTL bugs. So this is the right to left, like the top 5 right-to-left bugs that I feel are the top for the past 2 years that have been fixed. Whoever was here, well, in Milan rather, in 2022, remembers I complained terribly about this thing when you open PDF files in LibreOffice, and if they had Hebrew, the text gets reversed. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Everybody who's tried to open a PDF in Hebrew or Arabic or whatever, just stuck with that, and there's nothing they can do other than manually reverse the text. So that was terrible, and that was fixed. PDF import still has very big number of problems. It's not that the situation is all great there, but it is now very usable with Arabic and Hebrew and Farsi and all of the other languages. So I don't remember whose fix it was, but thanks for that. Sorry. Then kudos for that. And now several fixes by Jonathan already, who looked into rather old code. A lot of the fixes are like that. The breakage when you move from when you change formatting within a stretch of text, then text layout can break. Also, line breaking issues when you have an orphan parenthesis at the end of of a line, which is no longer the case. And something else, which is not a right-to-left bug fix, but is super useful, is that we now have a paragraph style for comments. So supposedly that has nothing to do with right-to-left, but actually you want to be able to make your comments all right-to-left if it's a right-to-left document. And before, you couldn't really do that. You could just format the characters. And now we can say that all of the comments are right to left, so we got a free fix out of some other work. And something else which is a bit niche, but within that niche is super meaningful, is that we can now create or author mathematical formulae in Arabic or right to left languages. So make the formulae right to left. Now, this might sound weird because even if whatever language you're using, it's very likely that when you write equations, you use like Greek and it's from left to right. But we all need to remember that algebra was famously developed very much in the Arab world after the Greek era. That's how it got its name. So there's a lot of mathematical notation that is actually in Arabic, and they also teach equations in many Arabic-speaking countries from right to left. So that is now possible. There are some minor bugs like when you introduce a feature, the immediate thing that happens is that people start filing bugs. Oh, but this doesn't work, and this doesn't work. But now there's something that could either work or not work. But no screenshots and more details about that. So I hope that was at least piqued your interest. The other category is complex text layout bugs, and here I'm going to take the bread and butter choice. So the bread and butter of complex text layout is properly connecting glyphs in Arabic or in the Arabic script. And this was also highlighted in the previous state of right to left update. And the glyph connection is also relevant for justification, and I won't go into that. But there's a link in case you want to read more about it. So there's another slew of fixes of bugs related to misconnected glyphs. Either they were misplaced or they were placed in the right spot but not perfectly aligned, so there were small gaps. And this is not one fix. These are different fixes for these different issues. Some of them are by Jonathan, but a lot of them are by Khaled Hosni, who I mentioned earlier, who also fixed a bunch of them that I mentioned 2 years ago. So great thank you to both of these gentlemen. So those were some interesting and impactful bug fixes of the last 2 years. about our less good or not as good news, if not to say bad news. So let's talk about the language teams for right-to-left languages. We have, at least in principle, 5 of them. But for Arabic, a contributor named Liad Talal, who I'm sure did great work, but after 2022, at the latest, did not do. I mean, he's out of contact. We can't reach him. And there's things that were kind of got stuck in the middle and need to be picked up. And I can't do it because even though I speak some Arabic, I can't, well, anyway, I can't do it. With the Hebrew language community, there are also some issues of mostly of inactivity. Not as this and we're pretty small to begin with. Kurdish, even the address that we have for the content, like for contacting that language team, is not a valid address. I've never been able to contact them. And we're completely missing teams for a lot of right-to-left languages. So that is too bad, and especially mind this: Africa, in West Africa. So in Africa, the area with right-to-left languages is mostly like Central West Africa, and we're really, like I said, we're really hurting there. So that's a problem. If you look at our website, so kind of big fail there, because these are either way out of date, which is one kind of problem, broken images, a 10-year-old theme, or suggest that you download LibreOffice 4, or just a copy of the LibreOffice 4 website, which is at least consistent, but the copy is in English, so it doesn't even help if you were trying to access the Hebrew website. And for other languages, we have no localized sites. And I'll skip this a bit, but relatively, so there's been a decrease or the deterioration in the extent of activity in the Arabic and the Hebrew groups. The Farsi group seems to be reasonably active, but I can't read Farsi, so I can't really follow can't at all follow the conversation. So you could ask Hussein about that community. Which I did, but okay, then that's not saying any more about that. And very few questions at ask.libreoffice.org. They do get answered, but there are very few of them. And other languages don't even have sections there. I mentioned 2 years ago 2 issues which I see as significant challenges facing right-to-left support in LibreOffice, which are not individual issues, but something wider and deeper. One of them is support for start and end position and alignment as opposed to right or left. So do I put things at the start of my paragraph or at the end, and which changes if according to the direction, where right or left is not relative to the direction, but is absolute. So so this is one issue. In the UI, in the ODF spec, in the rendering code, etc., everywhere. So that's one thing. The other thing is recognizing that the language of text is a content feature rather than a style feature. And I won't go into the details of what this means, but this is another combination of issues which is relatively deep. And I do promise that I'll talk about them again in more breadth and depth rather than just mentioning them. But I mentioned them to talk about the progress regarding these 2 issues. So there's not been any change that I'm aware of to our code base that promotes the resolution of these cases. Neither to the ODF specification, and I'm partly to blame for that myself. We did have in Bucharest, Heiko and Mike were not here. We did have a long chat about the font per language, which is an aspect of the second problem. But even though we did like get some sort of an outline of an arrangement of what we think this could look like, this hasn't progressed so far. And I've mentioned it to Jonathan, but he's just gotten started and has a lot on his plate. And still not enough people, I believe, are aware of these two issues and their significance. And yeah, so not that much done on that front. Finally, a couple of, or more than a couple of recommendations to ourselves. So in the past, and even the recent past, you could argue that the main obstacle to adoption of LibreOffice by right-to-left writing or speaking people was the technical deficiencies. And it's still arguably the case, at least to some extent. But we can now, and I've now reported that we have a healthy rate of progressing in resolving a bunch of issues. And I expect that if this continues, then within 2 or 3 years, then the returns in terms of effect on the user experience will not, so they will not diminish. But right now, every bug fix or almost every bug fix is like, wow, this is you saw the things I mentioned. These are serious bugs that affect people's everyday use and not just some corner situation, which is also important. So within a few years, we'll start getting to the corner cases. And at that stage, what will be the main blocker of adoption will be the aspects that are out of the application itself. So I mentioned websites, help, guide, video, user communities, etc. Which for now you could say, okay, that's also too bad that we don't have, but we can focus on the technical aspects. And so so my recommendations is well, the second one first. I think we should complement the investment that we've committed to in the technical aspect on right-to-left issues with some investment of effort in the coming years on content that's outside the application and also in, let's call it, social activities or diplomatic activities, increasing visibility, outreach, promotional activity, community building. Of course, people who speak right or use right-to-left languages should do that, but there's a vicious cycle because we don't have many of those. And of course, the main focus is Arabic and West African languages, and also the smaller one. And the two larger challenges that I mentioned, they need, a person can't just start working on them like an individual. Or maybe it's possible, I'm not sure. But there needs to be more, I said awareness is not sufficient, there needs to be more involvement of people and awareness that it's something we need to plan for, devote time for, discuss who is going to work on what part, how this is going to affect different parts of the application, and the ecosystem companies, etc., etc. And number three, I mentioned briefly that input filters are a significant issue. We all know this, but this is particularly true for right-to-left documents, which have their own idiosyncrasies in Microsoft formats. So these are three things that I believe we should be doing. And that is it. So I'll declare we have some time for questions.
Some general issues that came up over the last few years. It's interesting if there have been any output in them in the end. I was always under the belief that hyphenation wasn't an issue in Hebrew, and then there was a suggestion that it's something that is used for newspaper typesetting. Was there ever any progress on that or any change in status?
There hasn't been any progress on hyphenation in Hebrew, and it's not a terrible issue, but it is an issue and is kind of complex, even though it's not as significant as in other languages. And thank you for reminding me, and I'll remember to look into it again. So if there are no other questions, then thanks for listening to me speak really fast for 30 minutes. And I hope you learned something.